The sun rose over the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado, California, painting the ocean a silvery blue. The smell of salt water mixed with coffee and the metallic tang of early morning drills. Inside the mess hall, laughter echoed off the steel walls. The rookies, a dozen young men in uniform, were gathered around one table, loud and cocky after completing another brutal physical test. Another day, another record. One of them, Petty Officer Second Class Tyler Briggs, boasted as he slapped his tray down. "If this keeps up, they'll have to promote me before graduation." His friends chuckled. Their camaraderie was sharp-edged, the kind forged under exhaustion and ego. They were proud of surviving Hell Week, proud of their bruises and salt-stung blisters. To them, arrogance was armor. They were SEAL rookies, future warriors of the most elite fighting unit on Earth. Or so they liked to remind everyone. The mess hall door creaked open. Conversations paused for a second, then resumed when they saw who entered. A woman. She wasn't tall or imposing. Her frame was lean, her walk steady, purposeful. Her hair was tied neatly under her cap, and her uniform was pressed to perfection. She carried her tray quietly, scanning the room, not in curiosity, but in quiet assessment, like someone used to noticing details others ignored. Her insignia, 2 silver stars, gleamed faintly on her collar. But the rookies didn't look closely enough. Tyler leaned toward his buddy, Ensign Rhodes, and whispered, "What's she doing here? Did the admin office run out of coffee again?" Rhodes smirked. "Probably here to check our paperwork. You know how they send officers down to remind us about proper procedure." The group snickered, watching her take a seat by herself near the window. A rookie named Sam Griggs whispered, "Bet she's logistics or public affairs." "They're all like that, no field time, just PowerPoint medals." Laughter rippled. They weren't cruel men, just young, full of pride, and ignorant of the weight that certain insignias carried. The woman didn't react. She placed her tray down, unfolded her napkin, and began eating with quiet precision. Not hurried, not hesitant, just composed. There was something unsettling about her calmness. The mess hall was always loud. Most officers avoided it when the rookies ate, but she seemed perfectly at ease amid the chaos. Tyler couldn't resist. "Ma'am," he called, his tone half polite, half mocking. "Hope the food's good enough for the upper brass." A few chuckled. Someone muttered, "Careful, Briggs. She might file a report." The woman looked up, her eyes steady. "Food's fine," she said simply. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "You rookies always talk this much before deployment?" The laughter died. Something in her tone, calm, even slightly amused, wasn't what they expected. Tyler tried to recover. "Just keeping morale high, ma'am." "Morale," she repeated, tilting her head. "That's one way to describe it." She looked back down at her meal, leaving them unsure whether she was teasing or criticizing them. The silence that followed was awkward. They went back to their food, though no one seemed as hungry anymore. She finished her meal quietly, then stood, tray in hand. For a moment she hesitated, looking at the group. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Every rookie froze. Rhodes nearly choked on his coffee. Of course, ma'am," he stammered, motioning to an empty seat. She placed her tray down again, this time directly across from Tyler. The air tightened. "I like hearing how our new recruits think," she said, her tone conversational. "Tell me, what's your biggest lesson so far?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Teamwork, ma'am." "Teamwork," she echoed. "Good answer. And what does that mean to you?" He hesitated. "That we depend on each other. We, keep each other alive." Her gaze stayed on him, patient but probing. "That's part of it," she said softly. "But teamwork isn't just about survival. It's about trust. respect, understanding the weight of the person next to you, even when you don't know their story. Her words sank in, but the rookies stayed quiet. She smiled faintly. You'll learn. The sea has a way of teaching what arrogance won't. Before they could respond, she began speaking again, but this time it wasn't conversation. It was storytelling. There was a mission, she began, her tone calm but edged with memory. 4 years ago, Arabian Sea, night operation. A ship hijacked by pirates. The extraction team underestimated the storm, cost them dearly. The rookies leaned in. Her storytelling was vivid, not rehearsed. The way she described the smell of diesel, the crash of waves, the panic in radio chatter, it was too specific to be fiction. I was aboard the support vessel, she continued. We had 20 minutes to get our men out before the hull flooded. Communications failed. Command froze. So, I made the call. She paused, eyes distant. It wasn't a popular decision. But we brought them all back. The table was silent. Tyler swallowed. You were on that mission? She nodded once. I was. Rhodes frowned. But that was a seal let up. Her lips twitched into a half-smile. Yes, I know. They exchanged uncertain looks. She was no ordinary officer, that much was clear. But the rookies still couldn't piece it together. After a few moments, she stood again, picking up her tray. Enjoy your meal, gentlemen, she said. You'll need your energy for the next drill. As she walked away, the group remained silent, watching her exit. When the door closed behind her, Tyler exhaled sharply. Who the hell was that? Rhodes shrugged. Beats me. Probably some operations officer trying to sound tough. But Sam, the quietest of the group, shook his head. No. Did you see those stars on her collar? They all turned to him. 2 stars, Sam said quietly. That's not admin. That's a flag officer. Tyler blinked. A what? Sam leaned forward. An admiral. The room went still. The reality hit like a grenade. The woman they'd been mocking might be one of the highest-ranking officers in the Navy. The realization settled uneasily in their guts. Tyler felt heat crawl up his neck. No way, he muttered. An admiral wouldn't come down here. But as the door to the mess hall opened again, every rookie snapped to attention instinctively. The base commander entered, Commander Hayes, a veteran SEAL with 20 years of combat experience. He looked around, nodded once, then said, Admiral Holt sends her compliments on the recruit's energy level this morning. No one breathed. Hayes's tone held a trace of irony. She said she enjoyed breakfast. Tyler's stomach twisted. Admiral Holt, the name carried weight, whispered across the Pacific Fleet. The youngest, Rear Admiral in the Navy, strategic mind, decorated officer, known for leading multiple high-stakes operations. And she just sat with them, listening, observing, testing. Hayes continued, She's reviewing the new training protocols this week. I'd suggest you make a better impression next time. Then he walked out. The rookies sat frozen, shame burning in their faces. Tyler lowered his head, his earlier laughter echoing mockingly in his mind. We joked about her rank. Rhodes exhaled slowly, and the word Admiral just left us speechless. Outside, through the mess hall window, they saw her crossing the courtyard. Her stride was steady, confident, not angry, not gloating, just purposeful. For the first time, Tyler realized what real power looked like. It wasn't loud. It didn't demand attention. It walked quietly, knowing exactly who it was, and didn't need anyone's validation. That morning, every rookie at that table learned something they'd never forget. The strongest leaders don't raise their voices. They raise the standard. And Admiral Sarah Holt had just raised it higher than any of them could reach. The morning after the mess hall incident, the rookies stood in formation on the wet asphalt of the training yard. The Pacific wind bit against their faces, sharp and salty, carrying the scent of gun oil and seawater. They were still talking quietly about the woman who had appeared and vanished like a ghost, the mysterious Admiral Holt. Tyler Briggs rubbed his palms together, his mind still racing. "You think Hayes was serious?" he whispered to Rhodes. "That really was the Admiral Holt?" Rhodes shrugged, his voice low. "I don't know, man. Maybe it's just some coincidence. Admirals don't eat in the mess hall with recruits." But Sam Griggs, the quiet one, shook his head. "No coincidence. I looked it up last night. Rear Admiral Sarah Holt, Fleet Command Pacific. Strategic Operations. She's the one who led the rescue in the Arabian Sea. That silenced them all." Before anyone could respond, a sharp whistle cut through the cold air. The recruits straightened instantly. Chief Petty Officer Leon Bear Martinez, the drill instructor with a voice that could shatter concrete, was marching toward them. "All right, warriors," Martinez barked. "Today's your leadership evaluation. You're going to demonstrate how you lead a unit under stress." He paused, his dark eyes scanning the line. "And just so you know, Admiral Holt herself will be observing." A ripple of shock ran through the recruits. Tyler felt his stomach twist. Rhodes muttered under his breath, "You've gotta be kidding." Martinez smirked. "You'll be representing the future of the Navy, gentlemen. Try not to embarrass us again." He blew the whistle. "Move out." By the time they reached the obstacle course, the Admiral was already there. She stood at the far end of the field, clipboard in hand, her expression unreadable. Morning sunlight glinted off her insignia. Tyler's pulse quickened. The rookies lined up, suddenly more disciplined than ever. Martinez called out, "You'll be divided into 2 fire teams. Each will complete the endurance course while carrying a wounded comrade. Simulate extraction under fire. Your objective: get your man out and finish with your team intact." Holt will be assessing leadership and cohesion. The Admiral gave a small nod. "Begin." Her tone was calm, but it carried more authority than any shout. The first team charged forward, shouting orders. Mud splashed. Rope lines swung. The air filled with grunts and curses. Tyler watched, determined not to fail. He'd been the loudest yesterday. Now he felt the weight of it. When it was their turn, he took point. "Move, stay tight," he shouted, grabbing a rope and hauling himself over the first wall. Rhodes and Sam followed close behind, dragging their casualty, a sandbag wrapped in a harness. They moved fast but sloppy. Mud slowed their steps, and soon coordination began to crumble. Rhodes slipped, the sandbag fell, and tempers flared. "Come on," Tyler snapped. "You're slowing us down." Sam shot back. "You're giving orders like we're machines, not teammates. Then move like one." "Enough," came a voice, steady, unhurried. Admiral Holt had stepped forward, hands clasped behind her back. The entire team froze mid-motion. She looked at them, not angry, not impatient, but disappointed. "What did you just call this exercise?" she asked quietly. Tyler straightened. "A leadership evaluation, ma'am." "Correct." "So where's the leadership?" No one answered. Holt took a few steps closer, her boots silent in the mud. "You think shouting louder makes you a leader?" she asked, her voice like calm water. "Or that rank gives you authority?" "Leadership is earned here," she pointed to her heart, "not here." Her finger tapped the silver stars on her collar. The recruits looked down, shame cutting deeper than exhaustion. She continued, "In combat, chaos is constant. People die when egos get louder than orders. You," she looked directly at Tyler, talk a lot about teamwork. Show me. Her words were not a reprimand. They were a challenge. Tyler inhaled, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. They restarted the course. This time, he didn't shout. He listened. He timed their moves, matched their pace, adjusted for rhythm instead of rushing. Sam led on the rope climb. Rhodes handled the load, and Tyler covered the rear. When one faltered, the others adjusted. By the time they crossed the finish line, they were drenched, panting, and filthy. But they were together. Admiral Holt stood waiting. She didn't clap or praise. She simply said, "Better." Then she walked away. After the exercise, the recruits collapsed under the shade of the barracks wall, gulping water like it was gold. "Better?" Rhodes muttered, wiping mud off his face. "That's all," she said. "We nearly drowned in that swamp." Sam grinned faintly. "You kidding?" That's high praise from someone like her. Tyler leaned back, staring at the sky. She's different. Doesn't need to yell. She just looks at you, and you know you messed up. Yeah, Rhodes agreed quietly. Like she's already seen the kind of mistakes that get people killed. They sat in silence for a while. Somewhere across the yard, the Admiral was talking with Commander Hayes and Martinez. She was calm, her posture straight, her tone low but decisive. Every movement radiated control. Tyler watched her from a distance. For the first time, he didn't see a woman or an officer. He saw something else entirely, a presence. He remembered the way she'd told that story in the mess hall, the night mission, the storm, the decision she made that saved lives. It wasn't bravado. It was lived truth. That realization unsettled him. He had joined the Navy chasing adrenaline and pride, but Holt carried herself like someone who'd long outgrown both. Later that evening, an announcement came over the intercom. All recruits report to the briefing room at 1900. Guest speaker, Rear Admiral Sarah Holt. Tyler's heart sank. By the time they filed in, the room was silent. Holt stood at the front, in dress uniform. No clipboard this time. Behind her, a large screen displayed a photo. A naval vessel half-sunk, smoke rising over rough waters. She began without preamble. This was the USS Trident. 2016. Arabian Sea. The recruits stared. On board were 42 sailors, she continued. One of them was my commanding officer. He froze when the hull cracked. Orders stopped. Men panicked. I had to make a decision. I disobeyed command, initiated immediate evacuation and counter-sabotage. Her gaze swept across the room. It saved every life on board, but it cost me 3 months of inquiry hearings. Some called it luck. Others called it insubordination. I called it leadership. No one moved. She took a breath. Leadership isn't about barking orders. It's about bearing responsibility when the world falls apart. You think rank gives you control? It doesn't. Respect isn't given. It's tested, earned, and proven in silence. The rookies listened as if the air itself had frozen. Then she looked at them one by one. Tyler, Rhodes, Sam. Her gaze was heavy, but not condemning. Each of you will face a moment when no one's watching. That's when you'll decide what kind of leader you are. The room stayed quiet for a long time after she finished. Finally, she said, "Dismissed." As the recruits filed out, Tyler turned once more toward the front. The Admiral was still standing there, her hands clasped, eyes fixed on the photograph of the sinking ship, the ghosts of that day etched across her face. For the first time in his life, Tyler Briggs, the loudest, proudest rookie, felt small. Not belittled, but humbled. He realized that true leadership wasn't about being noticed. It was about being dependable when no one else could be. And that night, as the lights of Coronado flickered against the water, every rookie who'd once laughed in that mess hall went to bed with the same thought echoing in their heads. They hadn't met just an officer. They'd met a force. Rear Admiral Sarah Holt, the woman who'd taught them, without shouting, that respect doesn't come from fear, but from the silence of earned authority. The next morning, the Pacific fog rolled in thick and heavy over Coronado Base, softening the edges of the world. The recruits stood at attention near the docks, their silhouettes blurred in the gray light. Seagulls wheeled above the surf, calling out into the damp wind that whipped through their uniforms. Chief Martinez paced before them, his boots splashing in puddles left from last night's storm. "Today," he barked, "you'll learn that teamwork is more than matching pace and shouting commands. You'll learn it when the sea's in your mouth and your lungs burn for air. Admiral Holt herself has designed your drill." Every rookie stiffened. Holt again. She appeared a moment later, stepping out from a hangar in her dark blue fatigues. No rank on display this time, just her nameplate, Holt. Even stripped of her insignia, her authority filled the air. She carried no clipboard, no visible weapon, but her presence made every man on that dock stand straighter. "Morning, gentlemen," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut clean through the ocean's roar. "We're doing something different today." She motioned toward the small boats tied to the pier, rigid inflatable crafts used for maritime extractions. "You'll form 2 teams. Objective: cross to the island, retrieve the beacon, and return as a unit. Simple. Except," her eyes narrowed, "you'll do it against the current, with 1 engine disabled." A murmur of disbelief spread among the recruits. "Ma'am, that's nearly impossible," Rhodes blurted. Holt arched a brow. "Then it'll be a valuable lesson." Martinez blew his whistle. "You heard the Admiral. Gear up and move." The sea was brutal that morning. The current tore at the boats, dragging them sideways. Waves slammed against the hulls, soaking the recruits to the bone. Every motion demanded strength, pulling oars, keeping balance, shouting over the wind. Tyler Briggs was leading his team again, this time quieter than before. Holt's words still echoed in his mind from the previous day. Leadership isn't noise. It's presence. Keep rhythm. He yelled, not to command, but to coordinate. Rhodes handled navigation. Sam monitored the fuel line. They worked in sync for once, each motion feeding the next. The other team wasn't as lucky. Their boat veered off course, their oars clashing as arguments broke out. Holt watched from the pier through binoculars, saying nothing. Her face remained calm, unreadable. Chief Martinez stood beside her. "Think they'll make it?" he asked. "They'll learn," she said simply. "Whether they succeed or not, they'll learn." By the time Tyler's team reached the island, their arms burned and their hands were raw. The beach was nothing but wet sand and jagged shells. They stumbled out of the boat, gasping. "There's the beacon." Sam pointed toward a red pole half buried near the rocks. "Go," Tyler ordered. They sprinted, grabbed it, and began the haul back to the boat. But the tide had shifted. The surf was rising, pounding harder now. "We're going to capsize if we go straight," Rhodes warned. "Then angle right," Tyler countered. "We'll fight the current." He didn't realize until too late that one of their rookies, Collins, was lagging behind. A wave knocked the smaller man off his feet, dragging him under. "Collins!" Tyler shouted. Without thinking, he dove in after him. The cold was instant, a shock that crushed the air from his lungs. Salt water blinded him. He kicked wildly, searching until his hand closed around Collins's vest. "Kick!" he yelled through the roar. Together, they surfaced, sputtering. Onshore, Sam and Rhodes shouted orders, hauling them back in by rope. It took everything they had to pull both men into the boat again. They made it, barely, and resumed rowing, slower now, but steady. From the dock, Holt lowered her binoculars. She'd seen the whole thing. Martinez glanced at her. "You're not stopping the drill?" She shook her head. "Not unless they give up. They need to finish this on their own terms." Her tone was soft, but her eyes were hard with memory. She'd been in his place once. A storm, a sinking vessel, a choice between hesitation and action. An hour later, the boats returned. Exhausted, the rookies stumbled out, soaked and shivering. They lined up automatically, mud dripping from their uniforms. Chief Martinez's voice thundered. "You call that teamwork? You looked like a school of confused SEALs out there." The men kept silent. Then Admiral Holt stepped forward. "Chief," she said quietly. "Let me." Martinez nodded, stepping aside. She walked along the line, her gaze stopping on Tyler. "You jumped without orders," she said evenly. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "Because." "He was going under, ma'am. You didn't think about it?" "No, ma'am." She studied him for a moment that felt like an eternity. Then she nodded. "Good?" He blinked. "Good? You reacted for your teammate, not your pride. That's progress." A flicker of a smile touched her lips. "But remember this. Instinct saves lives, discipline keeps them. You'll need both if you ever want to lead men into war." She turned to the rest of the group. "You all think leadership looks like medals, or shouting, or being the fastest. It's not. It's the person who dives into chaos when everyone else freezes." Her gaze swept across the rookies, her words landing like steel. "You don't lead because you wear rank. You lead because you carry those who can't." The recruits stood straighter, something unspoken shifting inside them. That evening, after lights out, the barracks buzzed quietly. Tyler sat on his bunk, replaying the day's events. The salt still stung his skin. His muscles screamed, but his mind wouldn't rest. Rhodes tossed him a canteen. "You're insane, you know that? Jumping in like that?" Tyler smiled faintly. "Couldn't let him drown." Sam leaned over. "Yeah, but Holt saw it. You probably just earned her respect." Tyler shook his head. "I don't think that's what she's about. She doesn't care about earning respect. She just expects us to have it for each other." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "You noticed how she doesn't need to raise her voice, even when she's tearing us apart?" "Yeah," Rhodes said. "Like she's done this before. Like she's seen worse." Tyler glanced out the window. Through the darkness, he could see Holt walking along the pier, alone, hands behind her back. The ocean wind tugged at her uniform, but she didn't flinch. Her silhouette looked like it belonged there, steady, grounded, part of the sea itself. "She carries something," Tyler murmured. "Something heavy." The next morning, the recruits found a note pinned to the bulletin board. It was brief, written in clean, precise handwriting. Team 4 demonstrated improvement under duress. Continue developing silent coordination. Remember, teamwork without trust is noise. R.A. Holt, no lecture, no speech. Just words that lingered deeper than any punishment could. Tyler folded the paper, pocketing it without a word. That day, they worked harder, spoke less, listened more. Every movement during training, every lift, every sprint, carried the same unspoken promise. Don't let your team down. Even Chief Martinez noticed the change. "Looks like our loudmouths finally learned how to shut up," he muttered with a grin. When Holt passed by later that afternoon, she didn't stop. But as she walked past, she gave the faintest nod. Just enough for them to know. She'd noticed. That night, while reviewing the day's reports, Admiral Holt paused at the line listing Team 4's incident, Sea Recovery Under Duress. She smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through her usual composure. Martinez, entering her office, caught the expression. "Something amusing, Admiral?" She didn't look up. "Not amusing, promising." He chuckled. "They're still rough, cocky, arrogant." "So was I once," she said quietly. He raised a brow. "You?" She set the file aside. "Every good sailor starts with pride. The ocean takes care of the rest." Later, as she stepped out of her office and looked toward the barracks, she could hear faint laughter, genuine this time, not mocking or hollow. The recruits were bonding. The lessons were taking root. She stood there for a moment, arms crossed, the cool wind brushing her face. Her eyes softened. They reminded her of herself, years ago, before the medals, before the politics, before she learned that leadership sometimes meant walking alone. She turned away, whispering to the wind, "Let them learn fast, before the ocean teaches them the hard way." The waves crashed against the pier in reply, as if the sea itself acknowledged her command. And under the moonlight of Coronado, the rookies slept, unaware that their admiral's watchful eye never truly left them. The morning sun rose crimson over the base, casting long, jagged shadows across the training field. The rookies stood in formation, their bodies aching, but spirits newly sharpened from yesterday's trials. The sea breeze carried salt and the distant hum of helicopters, a sound that always reminded them they were part of something larger than themselves. Chief Martinez's whistle split the air. "Listen up. You think yesterday was tough? Today, we've got a guest observer. So you better not look like a bunch of amateurs." The recruits exchanged glances. A guest observer meant someone high-ranking, maybe an evaluator from command. But none of them could have guessed who would arrive. Moments later, the sound of boots echoed against the concrete as a convoy pulled up beside the field. Out stepped a tall man in full navy whites, his silver stars catching the sunlight. He carried himself with calm, absolute authority. The rookies froze. "Commander Hawthorne," Martinez announced, saluting sharply. "Welcome to Coronado." The commander returned the salute, his tone cool. "At ease. I'm here to review Admiral Holt's new training initiative. I want to see what she's doing to our rookies." The recruit's eyes widened slightly. Her program? Then, as if summoned by his words, Admiral Rebecca Holt appeared at the far end of the field. She wasn't wearing her dress blues, just her training fatigues, sleeves rolled up, boots coated in sand. She didn't need to flash her rank. The commander's posture stiffened slightly when she approached. Even he seemed to tread carefully around her. "Hawthorne," she greeted calmly. "Admiral," he replied, forcing a smile. "I hear you're pushing them hard. Let's see if the results justify the effort." Her expression was unreadable. "Then stay and watch. They'll either impress you, or they'll remember this day for the rest of their lives." The whistle blew again. "Obstacle run," Martinez barked. The recruits exploded into motion. They sprinted through sand pits, crawled beneath barbed wire, vaulted walls slick with mud. The field became chaos, shouts, grunts, and the metallic clang of determination. Commander Hawthorne watched with a faint smirk. "They're sloppy," he muttered. "Not yet," Holt replied. "Give them time." He raised an eyebrow. "You really think this group of loudmouths has potential?" She didn't answer. Her eyes tracked one figure, Tyler Briggs, as he hoisted himself over a rope wall, sweat streaming down his face. He'd hesitated for only a moment before pulling another recruit, Collins, up after him. That 1 second told her more than an hour's briefing could. "They're learning," she said softly. Halfway through the run, disaster struck. Rhodes, trying to clear a trench, landed wrong. His ankle twisted sharply beneath him. He fell hard, crying out. "Man down!" Tyler shouted, rushing back. "Leave him!" Sam yelled. "We'll lose time." But Tyler ignored him. He slung Rhodes's arm over his shoulders, half carrying, half dragging him through the mud. The rest of the team hesitated, torn between orders and instinct. Holt's eyes narrowed. "Watch this," she murmured. The other recruits stopped arguing. One by one, they turned back to help Tyler. Together, they lifted Rhodes over the trench, refusing to quit even as the clock ran out. When they finally crossed the finish line, collapsing in the sand, Martinez blew his whistle. "Disqualified," he barked. Tyler didn't even look up. "Doesn't matter," he gasped. "He's not getting left behind." Commander Hawthorne folded his arms. "You're rewarding weakness, Holt." They broke formation. They disobeyed the objective. Holt turned to him slowly. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut steel. "No," she said. They completed the mission. Their mission wasn't to win a stopwatch race. It was to finish as a unit. "If you can't see the difference, Commander, you've forgotten what the SEALs stand for." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The recruits glanced nervously from one to the other. Hawthorne looked away first. "Your methods are unconventional, Admiral," he said coolly. "They're effective," she replied. That evening, the rookies gathered in the mess hall, still buzzing from the confrontation they'd witnessed. "Did you see her face when she shut him down?" Sam whispered, grinning. "I thought the commander was going to melt right there." Rhodes chuckled weakly, his ankle wrapped in ice. She could command a war just by looking at someone. Tyler stayed quiet, his mind replaying Holt's words. They completed the mission. She'd defended them, not because they were perfect, but because they'd chosen loyalty over pride. For the first time, they began to understand who Admiral Holt really was. Not just a superior officer, but a leader who had earned every ounce of her respect the hard way. Later that night, while the base slept, Holt stood alone at the edge of the pier. The sea was black glass under the moonlight, the air heavy with salt and memory. Chief Martinez approached quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You didn't have to do that today," he said, offering her one. "Taking on the commander in front of the recruits? That'll make ripples." She took the mug, staring out at the waves. "Good, let it." Martinez leaned against the railing. "You've got history with Hawthorne, don't you?" Her jaw tightened. "We served together once. He thinks leadership is control. I think it's trust. We stopped agreeing a long time ago." Martinez nodded. "Still, you stood up for those kids. They needed that." She took a slow sip, the wind tugging at her hair. "They needed to see that I'll fight for them, even when they're not flawless. Because one day out there," she gestured to the horizon, "no one will be flawless. And they'll need to know that leadership doesn't abandon the wounded." For a long time, they stood in silence, listening to the waves. Then Martinez said quietly, "You remind me of your father." Her expression flickered. "He died at sea because his commander hesitated. I swore I'd never let hesitation cost lives again." The memory lingered between them, carried on the wind. The next morning, Holt assembled the rookies on the parade ground. The sun was barely up, and the air was thick with mist. "Yesterday," she began, "you failed the time trial. But you passed the lesson." The recruits straightened, unsure if they were being praised or punished. "You've learned what the manuals can't teach, responsibility. That's what separates soldiers from warriors. And that's why we're going further." She motioned toward the shoreline. The waves were calm now, glittering gold beneath the dawn. "You'll perform a night navigation drill tonight. Real currents, real conditions. You'll lead without lights, without signals, only instinct and teamwork." Tyler exchanged a look with his teammates. Night drills were the hardest. One wrong turn, and you could lose direction, or worse, someone could vanish in the dark. "Understood, ma'am," he said. Holt nodded once. "Good. because this time I won't be watching from the dock." The recruits froze. "You'll be with us?" Sam asked. Her lips curved in a faint, dangerous smile. "That's right. You wanted to know what leadership feels like? Tonight, you'll find out up close." That night, the base slept under a moonless sky. The rookies gathered by the boats, adrenaline pulsing in their veins. Holt stood among them, her expression unreadable, her presence electric. "Compass check," she ordered. "No lights. No noise. Navigate by current and instinct. I'll be in the water beside you. If I'm ahead, you're too slow. If I disappear, you've failed." And with that, before anyone could respond, she dove cleanly into the dark water. For a moment, they just stared. Then Tyler barked, "Let's move." They followed, into the cold, endless black. The ocean swallowed them whole, erasing sound and sight, leaving only the rhythm of their strokes and the faint glow of phosphorescent plankton swirling around them. Somewhere ahead, they could sense her, the Admiral, cutting through the current like she was born of it. Hours passed. Muscles burned. But no one quit, because somewhere in that darkness, they'd begun to believe, not in themselves yet, but in her. And for Holt, every stroke through the cold reminded her of her father's last words before his ship went down. "Lead them better than I was led." The words had guided her entire life. Tonight, they guided her team. By the time the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the rookies reached the checkpoint, together, exhausted, trembling, but alive. Holt surfaced beside them, breathing hard but steady. She looked at them, these once arrogant rookies, now humbled, hardened, changed. "Congratulations," she said simply. "You didn't follow me. You followed each other. That's what makes you SEALs." And with that, she climbed onto the dock, water streaming from her uniform, her eyes reflecting the sunrise, calm, commanding, unbreakable. For the first time, the recruits truly understood why the word Admiral carried such weight. It wasn't the title that made her powerful. It was the storm she'd endured to earn it. The base was unusually quiet the following week. After the night navigation drill, the rookies moved differently, faster, sharper, more united. They still laughed, but it wasn't the mocking laughter of before. It was the low, respectful sound of shared hardship. Even Chief Martinez admitted to Admiral Holt, "They're changing, ma'am. Whatever you're doing, it's working." Holt stood by the observation window, overlooking the ocean, her reflection framed by the endless gray-blue horizon. "Change doesn't happen through comfort, Chief," she said softly. "It happens when men are forced to look at their limits and go past them." He gave a small, knowing smile. "They'll follow you anywhere now." She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on the waves. Let's hope they never have to prove that. That afternoon, while the recruits were midway through physical training, the base alarms blared. A sharp, pulsing wail echoed across the compound. The rookies froze. Even Martinez's booming voice was drowned out by the sound. Holt appeared seconds later, striding across the field with a calm that cut through the chaos. "Status," she demanded as an officer ran up, breathless. "Ma'am, we've got an emergency distress call from a civilian research vessel, Ocean Star 4. They're reporting engine failure near the northern channel. Heavy currents. 2 crew members missing overboard. How far out?" Holt's tone didn't waver. 10 nautical miles. The Coast Guard's en route, but they're short-staffed. Closest unit is us. Holt turned sharply to Martinez. "Prep a response team. I'll take the rookies." Martinez blinked. "Ma'am, with respect, rookies, this isn't a drill." Her eyes met his, steady, unblinking. "Exactly. It's their chance to find out if they're soldiers or just students." He hesitated, then nodded. "Aye, Admiral." Minutes later, the rookies assembled by the dock, adrenaline flooding their veins. The sky was darkening fast, a storm brewing on the horizon. Wind lashed against their faces as waves slammed the seawall. Tyler, now unofficially the team's lead, looked to Holt. "Ma'am, what's the mission?" "Rescue and recovery," she said, buckling her life vest. "Two missing. We locate, retrieve, and return alive. You'll do exactly as I say, no improvisations. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am," they shouted in unison. She nodded once, her jaw set. "Let's bring them home." The boats tore across the water, slicing through the choppy waves. Rain began to pelt down, blinding and cold. The Ocean Star 4 appeared as a flickering silhouette through sheets of rain, a research vessel listing to one side, smoke rising from its stern. "Throttle down," Holt shouted over the roar. "Approach starboard." As they neared, they saw two crew members clinging to the railing, waving frantically. One shouted hoarsely, "Two overboard. They went under 5 minutes ago." Holt's eyes scanned the dark water. "Sam, deploy sonar. Rhodes, prep the harness. Tyler with me." Tyler froze. "With you, ma'am?" Her voice was firm. "You heard me. You're my dive partner." Before he could question it, Holt dove overboard, disappearing beneath the turbulent surface. Tyler followed without hesitation. The cold hit like a fist. Visibility was almost zero. The current was brutal, dragging them side to side. Holt's flashlight cut a narrow beam through the darkness. Then movement. A shape, pale and drifting, caught in a loop of rope beneath the hull. Holt surged forward, cutting the rope with her dive knife. She signaled Tyler, "Pull him up." Together, they hauled the unconscious man toward the surface. They broke through the water to the sound of shouts. "We've got one," Tyler yelled, coughing. Ropes were thrown, hands pulling them up as rain poured in sheets. "CPR," Holt ordered, pushing through the chaos as they laid the man on deck. "No pulse. Start compressions." Rhodes jumped in, counting out loud as Holt tilted the man's chin and began rescue breaths. The crew gathered around, watching as the rookies worked with laser focus, every motion drilled, practiced, and now real. After agonizing seconds, the man gasped, sputtering seawater. Cheers erupted around them. But Holt didn't celebrate. She looked toward the waves. "We're not done. One more still missing." "Ma'am, storm's intensifying." Martinez's voice crackled through the radio. "We're at risk of capsizing if you stay longer." Holt's reply was calm steel. "Negative. One still unaccounted for. Hold position." Tyler looked at her, the wind whipping his face raw. "Ma'am, visibility's dropping fast," she met his eyes. "You think leadership ends when conditions get bad?" "We go." Without another word, she dove again. This time, the ocean was furious. Waves collapsing overhead, current shifting unpredictably. Tyler followed, lungs burning, fighting the drag of the sea. He spotted a faint flash of yellow, a life jacket, then realized the missing crew member was trapped beneath a section of broken hull. Holt reached it first. The debris was wedged deep, impossible to move easily. Tyler gestured frantically that they had to surface, air running low, but Holt shook her head, pushing the emergency release valve on her own vest to drop deeper. She's going to risk it, Tyler realized, panic surging. She wedged her shoulders under the beam and lifted, her muscles straining. The metal groaned, a deep, awful sound, then shifted just enough for Tyler to pull the crew member free. They kicked hard toward the surface, lungs screaming. They broke through, but Holt didn't. Tyler spun, eyes wide. "Admiral Holt." Seconds later, she surfaced several yards away, gasping, dragging her mask off. "Got him," she shouted hoarsely. "Get him aboard." They hauled the unconscious man in, laying him beside the other survivor. Tyler pulled himself onto the deck, chest heaving. Holt followed last, drenched, coughing seawater. Her hand shook only slightly as she checked the pulse. Weak, but there. "Pulse detected," she said, relief softening her voice. "We've got both." When they finally returned to base, the storm still raged behind them. Medics took over, rushing the survivors into the infirmary. The rookies stood in soaked silence, adrenaline fading into exhaustion. Chief Martinez approached. "Hell of a call, Admiral." "You saved them." Holt shook her head. "They saved them. I only gave the order." She turned to the recruits. "You kept formation, you stayed focused, and you didn't panic, even when conditions collapsed. That's more than most trained units manage their first time under live pressure." Tyler, still catching his breath, looked at her in awe. "You risked your life for them? For strangers?" Holt's gaze softened. "That's the job, Briggs. You don't choose who's worth saving. You just go." Her tone carried a weight, personal, almost haunted. Later that night, after debriefing, Holt sat alone in her quarters. The lights were dim. A framed photograph rested on her desk, a younger version of herself in uniform beside an older man, both smiling in front of a Navy vessel. Her father. Her fingers brushed the edge of the frame. "You'd have done the same," she whispered. "Maybe that's why I had to." There was a knock on the door. "Come in," she said. Tyler stepped in, awkward at first. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say thank you for what you did out there. For all of us." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "You earned that rescue, Briggs. Don't thank me. Just remember it." He hesitated. "Still, if you hadn't gone back under..." She stopped him with a raised hand. "A leader doesn't count risks. Only lives." There was silence, heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Tyler nodded. "Understood, ma'am." He turned to leave, but she said quietly, "Briggs." He paused. Her eyes softened. "You did good today. You kept your team alive. That's what matters." He smiled faintly. "Coming from you, that means everything." After he left, Holt leaned back, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the air still and clean. She stared at the quiet sea beyond her window, its surface gleaming silver under the moonlight. Her reflection stared back, not the legend, not the Admiral, just the woman beneath the rank who still carried ghosts the world would never see. For all her power, she knew the ocean never gave peace. It only gave moments of calm between the storms. And tonight, she'd earned one. Morning sunlight broke through the storm clouds, painting the base in pale gold. The air smelled of salt and diesel. The rookies stood assembled on the training field, uniforms crisp, boots still damp from the night before. Their bodies were exhausted, but their eyes burned with something new: pride. Word of the Ocean Star 4 rescue had already spread across Coronado. Even hardened officers nodded when they passed the team. For the first time, the rookies weren't seen as loud-mouthed trainees. They were the group who'd gone into the storm and come back alive. Tyler Briggs caught sight of Admiral Holt walking along the pier, her cap tucked under one arm. She didn't walk like a hero, just a soldier who'd done her duty. But to them, she was larger than life. "Think she ever sleeps?" Sam muttered. "Probably not," Rhodes replied. "She doesn't need to. She runs on respect and seawater." They laughed quietly, the easy, genuine kind. But the moment didn't last. Chief Martinez approached, his expression grim. "Briggs, Holt wants you and your team in the briefing room. Now." The laughter faded. The room was cold and sterile, lit by the blue glow of projectors. Holt stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. Across from her sat 3 officers in formal uniforms, men from Washington. "Admiral Holt," the lead officer began, "this meeting concerns your actions during the Ocean Star 4 rescue." Tyler and his team exchanged uneasy glances. The officer continued, voice clipped. "You engaged a civilian rescue without proper clearance. You risked classified personnel, trainees, in a live maritime emergency. That violates Article 19 of Command Protocol." Holt didn't flinch. 2 people were drowning. Waiting for clearance would have cost lives. "With all due respect," another officer interjected, "we have Coast Guard units for that purpose." Her tone sharpened. "They were an hour out. The victims didn't have an hour." The first officer sighed. "Admiral, no one questions your intentions. But rules exist for a reason. Unauthorized actions undermine structure." Holt's eyes were ice. "So does letting people die when you could have saved them." A tense silence followed. Even the rookies, usually restless, didn't move. The lead officer finally said, "Command will conduct a formal review. Until then, your training operations are suspended." Tyler's heart dropped. "Suspended?" The officer ignored him. "Effective immediately." Holt's jaw tightened, but she didn't protest. "Understood," she said. When the officers left, the room felt heavier. The rookies stared at her, stunned. "Ma'am," Tyler began carefully, "this is because of the rescue? We saved those people." "I know," she said softly. "And I'd make the same choice again." "Then why are they punishing you?" Sam asked. "You did the right thing." She met his gaze, calm, steady. The right thing and the authorized thing aren't always the same. That's the cost of command. Rhodes clenched his fists. "So they suspend you for saving lives? That's messed up." Her lips curved faintly. "Welcome to the Navy, Rhodes." She started to walk out, but paused at the door. "Stay sharp. Training might be suspended, but discipline isn't. You're still my men. Act like it." And then she was gone. The base changed after that. Without Holt's presence, the routines felt hollow. Chief Martinez took over drills, but the energy was different, mechanical, uninspired. "She'd be back," Tyler told the others one night in the barracks. "They can't ground someone like her forever." Sam wasn't so sure. What if they reassign her? You heard what those officers said. Washington hates it when someone breaks the chain of command. Rhodes kicked at the floor. She didn't break it. She led. There's a difference. Silence followed. They all knew he was right, but they also knew rules didn't care about differences. 3 days later, the rookies were summoned to the main auditorium. The command flag hung behind the stage. Officers filled the seats. At the front stood Admiral Holt, expression unreadable, posture rigid. Tyler's heart leapt. "She's back." The lead investigator stepped forward. "After review of the Ocean Star 4 operation, the board acknowledges Admiral Rebecca Holt's actions resulted in the preservation of civilian life under extreme conditions. However, her decision bypassed procedural authorization. Therefore, a formal reprimand will be entered into her record." The room buzzed. A reprimand was serious, a stain on an otherwise spotless career. But before the whispers could grow, the officer continued, "That said, Command also recognizes her exceptional leadership and the unprecedented success of her training initiative. Effective immediately, Admiral Holt's suspension is lifted." The recruits couldn't hold back their relief. Holt stepped up to the microphone. Her voice was low, but carried across the hall. "Regulations keep the Navy strong," she began. But strength means nothing without humanity. I made a call, one I'll stand by, because leadership isn't about being right on paper. It's about being responsible for what happens in the real world. Her eyes found her rookies in the crowd. These recruits reminded me what leadership looks like, not in medals, but in the willingness to risk everything for each other. If that's a mistake, I'll make it again. The auditorium went silent. Then slowly, Chief Martinez started to clap. Others followed. Even the skeptical officers joined in, until the room echoed with thunderous applause. Holt nodded once, then stepped back from the podium. Afterward, outside the hall, Tyler approached her. "Ma'am, they tried to make you look reckless, but you turned it into a lesson." She smirked slightly. "Everything's a lesson, Briggs, especially when they think you've lost." "Still," he said, "you shouldn't have had to defend yourself. You did what anyone with a conscience would have done." Her expression softened. "That's the point. Not everyone would have. You would. And one day you'll have to, without me there." Her words hit him like the tide, steady, inevitable. "You're not going anywhere, are you?" he asked quietly. She looked toward the horizon, where the ocean shimmered gold under the setting sun. "Someday, everyone goes. The goal is to leave something worth staying for." The following week, training resumed. But it wasn't the same routine grind. Holt's near suspension had changed everything, for her, for them, for the entire base. She ran the next drills herself, pushing them harder than ever. Underwater navigation, live combat simulation, endurance dives. The rookies no longer complained. They didn't dare. Every exercise now carried weight, purpose. One evening, as they trudged back from the field, Sam muttered, "Feels like she's preparing us for something big." "She is," Tyler said quietly. "She's preparing us for life without her." That night, Holt met privately with Chief Martinez in her office. Reports, mission logs, and personnel files were stacked neatly on her desk. "You're leaving, aren't you?" he asked bluntly. She didn't look up from the file she was signing. "Orders came through this morning. Deployment review in D.C. They're moving me to Strategic Command." He frowned. "So that's it? You train them, rebuild this base, and then vanish into paperwork?" She smiled faintly. "Not vanish. Just move to a different battlefield. They'll take it hard," Martinez said. "Those rookies would follow you into hell." "They already did," she replied softly. "And they came back stronger. That's all I wanted." The next morning, word spread quickly. Admiral Holt was being reassigned. The recruits were stunned. No one knew what to say. When they finally gathered by the pier to see her off, the sky was streaked with sunrise, the same color as the sea had been the day she first arrived. She stood before them, cap in hand. "You started this journey as loud, reckless rookies," she said, a rare smile touching her lips. "Now you're soldiers I'd trust with my life. Remember, rank is just metal. Respect is earned in moments like the ones you've lived." Her gaze moved to Tyler. "Briggs, you're their anchor now. Keep them grounded." He swallowed hard. "Ma'am, we'll make you proud." "I know you will," she said. The helicopter's rotors thundered overhead. She saluted, sharp, flawless, and the team snapped to attention, returning it with everything they had. As she boarded, the wind whipped around them, her figure silhouetted against the rising sun. And then she was gone. Hours later, the rookies sat in silence on the same pier she'd once stood on. The sea was calm, the sky wide. Sam broke the silence. "Feels empty without her." Tyler nodded slowly. "She's still here. Everything she taught, it's not going anywhere." Rhodes smirked faintly. "So, what now?" Tyler looked out toward the endless horizon. "Now we train. Because someday, It'll be our turn to lead, and we'll remember exactly how she did it. That night, far above the clouds on her transport flight, Admiral Holt opened a folder marked Confidential, Strategic Command Assignment. Inside was a single memo stamped Urgent. Her next mission had already begun. And though she didn't know it yet, the rookies she'd left behind would soon face their own test, one that would bring her lessons crashing back into their lives. The first time the rookies heard the call, they were mid-drill in the surf. Waves crashed against them as they practiced underwater extraction techniques. The sky was gray, heavy with early morning fog. Tyler Briggs' radio buzzed insistently. He grabbed it, chest heaving. "Briggs, report," he barked. The voice on the other end was sharp, clipped. No time for pleasantries. "Tyler Briggs, this is command. A high-priority mission requires immediate deployment. Stand by for transport coordinates. Admiral Holt is already en route." The words hit like a wave. "Admiral Holt?" Sam exclaimed, spluttering through salt water. "Yeah," Rhodes muttered, eyes wide. "I thought she was in D.C." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Get the team ready now." The recruits scrambled, adrenaline surging. Gear was loaded, boats checked, communications calibrated. Nothing about this was routine. Holt's presence, even on the radio, carried a weight heavier than any drill. By the time they reached the rendezvous point, a Black Hawk helicopter hovered overhead. The sea churned below, dark and relentless. Holt was waiting on the deck of a transport ship, her figure stark against the churning gray waves. "Good," she said, scanning the rookies. "You look ready." Tyler swallowed. "We're as ready as we'll ever be, Mom." She arched an eyebrow. "Good. This isn't a drill. You'll follow my lead. No hesitation. No improvising. One mistake and we lose more than the mission." The rookies nodded, knowing she didn't say this lightly. Holt had always made them earn trust through action, not words. The mission briefing was terse. A hostile vessel, suspected of transporting illicit arms, had been reported in international waters near a storm-racked channel. Intelligence suggested the crew was armed and desperate. "We go in fast, clean, and silent," Holt instructed. "You're my forward team. Recon first, extraction second. If engagement is unavoidable, contain, neutralize, and protect civilians at all costs." Tyler glanced at the team. None of them had faced a live operation at this level. The thought of casualties was not theoretical. Holt continued, her eyes scanning each of them like a surgeon evaluating muscle, nerve, and resolve. "Remember what we practiced. Trust each other. Communicate without words. Move like one body. Fail, and lives are gone. Succeed, and you might just save more than you realize." It was not a pep talk. It was a warning. The sea journey to the target zone was rough. Storm clouds clashed overhead, lightning slashing across black waves. Waves pounded the boat, water spraying over the deck. Tyler gritted his teeth, adjusting his harness. "I thought the last storm was bad," he muttered. Sam laughed weakly. "We didn't have Holt with us last time. That makes a difference." Holt appeared beside them, almost silently, her hood down. "Focus on the task, not the storm," she said. "The ocean doesn't care about excuses." Her presence was magnetic, commanding without demanding, drawing their attention and sharpening their reflexes instantly. They approached the vessel under cover of night. Using a combination of sonar readings and stealth approach, the rookies and Holt navigated treacherous waters, avoiding detection. Every creak of the ship, every splash against the hull, sent pulses of tension through the team. Holt motioned them forward, diving silently into the water. Tyler followed immediately. Sam and Rhodes trailed closely, hearts hammering. Beneath the surface, currents tugged at them viciously. Visibility was low. Holt's flashlight cut a thin line through the black water. The vessel loomed above, massive, ominous, barely illuminated by the stormy moonlight. "Remember," Holt whispered, voice barely audible. "We move as one." Eyes, hands, mind, synchronized. Tyler nodded. The lesson she drilled into them, trust and coordination, suddenly wasn't hypothetical. It was literal. Inside the vessel, chaos waited. Crew members moved with frantic urgency. One stumbled into the wrong corridor, nearly triggering an alarm. Tyler held his breath. Holt signaled him, "Stay calm. Control your zone." He led Sam and Rhodes down the narrow hall, clearing corners and securing areas as Holt's presence seemed to multiply, always just ahead, always watching. Then a gunshot rang out. Tyler ducked instinctively, dragging Sam behind a crate. Holt was already there, a rapid, precise sweep clearing the hall. The recruits followed, adrenaline masking fear. The boarding lasted what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Holt guided the rookies through every decision, engagement, extraction, and restraint. When the vessel's captain tried to resist, Holt stepped forward. One decisive action, one gesture, and the man surrendered, knowing resistance was futile. Back on the deck, the rescued civilians clung to Holt and the rookies, shivering from cold, fear, and relief. Tyler watched her, awestruck. She had turned chaos into order with calm authority, just as she had always promised. "You did well," Holt said, looking at the rookies. "All of you. This isn't about medals. It's about knowing what you can do when the odds are stacked against you." Tyler's chest swelled with pride. "Couldn't have done it without you, ma'am." She shook her head. "No, you did it. I only showed the way. Leadership isn't taking the risk. It's making sure your team survives it." Sam leaned closer to Rhodes, whispering, "She makes it look easy." Rhodes shook his head. "Easy isn't the word. Impossible might be closer." Hours later, the storm finally subsided. The team returned to base, exhausted but alive. For the first time, the rookies truly understood Holt's lessons about risk, instinct, and leadership. They'd faced fear, chaos, and death, and they'd acted as one. Holt stood at the pier, looking out at the water. Tyler approached. "Ma'am, why did you take us on this mission?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, her eyes calm but intense. "Because it was the only way to teach you the final lesson. You can train for months, even years, but you'll never learn leadership until you face real stakes. Tonight, you saw the consequences. And you survived them because you trusted each other." Tyler nodded slowly. "We learned. I think we finally understand." "Good," she said. "Now remember it, always." By the next day, news outlets were abuzz. Admiral Holt leads rookie SEALs in daring rescue of civilians from hostile vessel. Headlines highlighted the bravery, the precision, the coordination, and of course, the leadership of Holt herself. The rookies found themselves at the center of attention, interviews, commendations, and curious glances from older SEALs who had doubted them. Tyler looked at his team, a smile tugging at his lips. "We've got a lot to live up to," he said. "Not us," Sam replied. "Her, we just follow." Rhodes grinned. "Yeah, we follow the Admiral." For the first time, the weight of Holt's mentorship, everything she drilled, pushed, and demanded, settled fully on their shoulders. They weren't rookies anymore. They were soldiers. And they had learned the hardest lesson of all. Leadership wasn't about orders. It was about presence, courage, and trust in yourself and in each other. That night, Holt sat alone in her quarters. The storm outside had passed, leaving the ocean calm and reflective. She reviewed the mission logs, checking every detail, noting every decision. A small smile touched her lips, not because of accolades or recognition, but because she had passed the torch. These rookies, once reckless, arrogant, inexperienced, now carried a piece of her philosophy forward. Her phone buzzed, a secure message from command. Next assignment, urgent briefing. Global security risk. Status, classified. She read it and set the phone aside, staring out at the horizon. One day, she knew, the rookies might face situations far worse than tonight. But for now, they were ready, and she had done her part. Somewhere in the distant sea, the wind whispered. Holt closed her eyes, remembering the first time she'd led a team into a storm. She had survived. They would too. And no matter what came next, she would be ready. The sun had barely risen, and the waves glimmered silver beneath a calm, deceptive sky. Holt's new orders had been classified, the kind of assignment where every detail was hidden behind codes and clearance levels. But she wasn't alone this time. A portion of her original rookies, Tyler, Sam, and Rhodes, had been recalled for this high-stakes operation. They arrived at the staging area, tension and anticipation crackling in the air. The team was older now, leaner, faster, sharper. They moved silently, eyes darting over every shadow, every ripple in the water, every subtle hint of danger. Holt watched them from a distance, her posture relaxed, but her gaze like a steel blade, scanning for weakness, hesitation, or doubt. "Report," she said quietly as they lined up. Tyler stepped forward. "All gear operational, ma'am." "Team ready." Holt nodded. "Good. Remember everything you've learned. Tonight, we operate without margin for error. Failure is not an option. Not for you, not for me, and not for those depending on us." The rookies swallowed, but this time, fear wasn't paralyzing. It was focused. They had faced death and chaos under her guidance. They had learned to move as one. The mission brief was urgent but terse. A hijacked cargo vessel carrying sensitive intelligence had been located in international waters. Hostiles were well armed, and satellite confirmation indicated the crew had taken several hostages. Command ordered immediate intervention. "This is not a drill," Holt said, voice low but cutting through the tension like a knife. "We go in, neutralize the threat, and extract the hostages. You will follow my lead without hesitation. Every second counts. Stay sharp and stay alive." Tyler nodded. "Understood, Mom?" Holt's eyes swept the group. "Good, then let's move." The rookies and Holt approached the vessel under cover of darkness, their small attack boats slicing through the black water like shadows. Waves slapped against the hull, and the wind carried the scent of storm and danger. Holt's presence at the front of the formation steadied them, like the eye of a storm guiding a fleet through chaos. They reached the target vessel, and Holt signaled, a subtle movement of her hand that commanded the rookies to follow silently into the water. Underneath, visibility was near zero. Currents tugged at them with violent intensity, but Holt had trained them for this. Every motion was calculated. Every decision was communicated without words. They moved as one, shadows among shadows, until they reached the hull of the hijacked ship. Inside the vessel, chaos awaited. Armed men shouted orders, unaware of the precision storm about to hit them. Holt led her team through narrow corridors, neutralizing threats with surgical efficiency. Tyler and his teammates moved with confidence, anticipating her cues. They secured hostages, navigating the corridors with a mix of adrenaline and instinct, honed by months of training under Holt's watchful eye. A gunshot rang out. Sam ducked instinctively, but Holt was already there, disarming the attacker with speed and precision that left the rookies in awe. "Keep moving," she barked, guiding them toward the hostages. The rookies realized that for all her rank, Holt never asked them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. She led every engagement, every extraction, every critical decision. They reached the control room, where the vessel's captain and a heavily armed lieutenant waited. The rookies froze for a moment. This was the highest stakes confrontation they had faced yet. Holt's eyes scanned the room, analyzing every angle, every exit, every weapon. "Drop your weapons," she ordered calmly but firmly. "You have no chance. Surrender now, and no one else gets hurt." The lieutenant laughed, waving a gun. "And if we don't?" Holt's eyes narrowed. "Then you're about to find out why the word Admiral carries weight." The rookies froze. They knew she wasn't bluffing. She moved first, and the rest followed seamlessly. In a flurry of controlled, precise action, Holt disarmed the attackers while the rookies secured the hostages. Every movement was synchronized, rehearsed in real life, perfected through months of training and countless tests of discipline. When the threat was neutralized, the team gathered the hostages, moving quickly to the extraction point. Holt maintained absolute control over the situation, her voice calm even as alarms blared, and the vessel shook under the first light of dawn. Tyler looked at her, awe and admiration mixing with exhaustion. "Ma'am, you're incredible." Holt shook her head slightly. "No, you're incredible. I just guide you." It was a lesson the rookies would never forget. Leadership wasn't about heroics. It was about enabling others to rise to the occasion and trusting them to do it. Back on the pier, after the hostages were safely transferred to authorities, the rookies finally had a moment to breathe. The storm had passed, the danger resolved, and the adrenaline slowly ebbed away. Holt stood before them, drenched, calm, and utterly composed. Tyler finally spoke, his voice raw. "Ma'am, you risked everything. For us, for them. Why?" Holt's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "Because someone has to. Because leadership isn't about rank. It's about responsibility. And because you've learned that courage isn't optional. It's what keeps everyone alive." Sam, eyes wide, muttered, She's like a legend." Rhodes chuckled, shaking his head. "Legend doesn't even cover it." Holt finally allowed a small, rare smile. "You've earned more than medals tonight. You've earned experience. You've earned understanding. One day, you'll pass this on. And then you'll know why the word Admiral isn't just letters on a collar. It's a weight, a responsibility, and a promise." The rookies stood silent, comprehension dawning. They had joked about her rank months ago. They had doubted her methods. They had even mocked her in the mess hall. Now, the word Admiral left them speechless. The news of the operation reached the broader Navy and even the media. Headlines celebrated Holt's decisive leadership and the rookies' courage. But those who had trained with her knew the real story. It wasn't the awards, the headlines, or the accolades. It was the lessons she had imparted in silence, in cold water, in chaos, and in moments where hesitation could cost lives. Tyler, Sam, and Rhodes often reflected on those moments, long after the adrenaline faded. They remembered the nights navigating stormy seas, the hours of grueling drills, and the precise, patient guidance of a woman who never demanded blind obedience, only trust, courage, and excellence. Weeks later, the rookies gathered by the pier once more. Holt was departing again, this time for a strategic operation overseas. Tyler approached her, chest tight with unsaid words. "Ma'am, thank you. For everything. For showing us how to lead, how to trust, and how to survive. You didn't just train us. You changed us." Holt's eyes held his. "I didn't change you. You did that yourselves. I just guided the process." Tyler shook his head. "No, ma'am. You gave us the chance, the opportunity, and for that, we'll never forget you." She reached out and clasped his shoulder firmly. "Then carry it forward. One day, someone else will need your guidance. Don't fail them. Not for me. Not for the Navy. Not for yourselves." The helicopter rotors began to whirl. Holt turned, saluting the rookies one last time. They returned the salute, rigid, perfect, and awed, a small, human gesture for a woman who had given them the courage to face the impossible. As she lifted into the sky, Tyler whispered to Sam and Rhodes, "She didn't just earn the title. She is the title." Sam nodded, voice soft. "Admiral, Holt, the word speaks for itself now." And Rhodes, ever the skeptic, simply shook his head, a smile creeping across his face. Speechless. "Yeah, that's exactly how I feel." That evening, the rookies gathered around the pier. The sea reflected the sunset, gold, red, and crimson, the perfect canvas for a story that had changed them forever. Tyler looked at the horizon, where Holt had disappeared. She was more than rank, more than skill. She was everything a leader should be. Rhodes added quietly, "And somehow, she made us believe we could be that too." Sam stared out over the water. "I'll never forget her. I'll never forget this." The rookies sat silently, watching the waves lap against the pier. The lessons of courage, trust, and leadership were theirs now. Holt had passed the torch, and they were ready to carry it. For the first time, they truly understood. Leadership wasn't given. Leadership was earned, and Admiral Holt had earned their respect, their trust, and above all, their admiration. The sun set. The water shimmered. And for the rookies, the word Admiral would never again be just a rank. It was a promise, a standard, and a legend.